take Adderall because it really helps me with my schoolwork.
It makes me so motivated to study, and I'm just
my friend, my best friend,
only sell it to people.
my work gives it to me for free.
It's like a study ecstasy. It gives like a feeling of just bliss.
Since I was in high school, the use of Ritalin and Adderall has become more and more prevalent. I started to do some research and found that on some college campuses, as much as 25% of the student population is on these kinds of drugs. And I started to wonder, for those who are prescribed, that's one thing, but for those who are using these drugs without prescriptions, are there any risks? Are there any legal risks? Are there any health risks? I started out by turning to Reddit because I knew that I'd get some candid, unfiltered responses. Here's some of what I found. This one time, I took my legal prescription as directed and achieved some level of mitigation of my ADHD symptoms, allowing me to function optimally. And then there was this. I was prescribed Ritalin as a kid, diagnosed with ADD. I hated it. In some ways, it helped me focus, but I was not in control of that focus. Someone else wrote, Ritalin made me pull 3 all-nighters in a row. I was so tired and had many hallucinations by the end. Look, these were all anecdotes, but I want to get to the bottom line. So I'm turning to Dr. Deanson Parker, an expert in the field, to ask her, are all these people, all my friends who are taking these drugs, are they in trouble?
Adderall is one of the most prescribed drugs in the U.S. It's designed to help kids who can't focus and are diagnosed with ADHD by a doctor.
I had a lot of energy. I could focus better. I started enjoying school more. I probably lost about 12 pounds in a week. I really don't like this drug. I don't feel like I'm living in the moment. Oh, I need to do this, I need to go to the bank, and I need to clean my...
I mean, obviously it's a drug and people take it and they shouldn't, but at the same time I don't see anything negative coming from it. I mean, in fact, all I really see is positive things because people are doing it to study.
So Dr. Parker, what is the deal with Ritalin and Adderall?
These drugs are used and first of all, prescribed for a diagnostic label, attention deficit disorder and ADHD, primarily. Those are particular disorders that have to be diagnosed. Those drugs are currently being used for purposes other than those which they were intended. Because they are both stimulants, they're being used to enhance performance now for academic achievement.
So they're really the steroids of studying.
They are the steroids of achievement right now. They're steroid drugs for study. Now, please know, it's worth taking the drug if you have the diagnosis, because you have a condition that needs to be treated, and I'm all for that. But I'm not for using these drugs indiscriminately for people who do not actually need them and in fact are abusing them for other purposes.
How about using it, to get through finals period? Somebody says, you know what, I have 2 weeks, I need to get through it, I need to study all night, let me use this as my boost.
I bring up the concept of cheating. If some kids can do it and other kids either don't know about it or aren't into it, we don't have a level playing field. And these kids are taking these drugs to have an advantage over their peers to get ahead. It is beat at all cost, win at all cost.
What have been some of the most extreme cases that you've seen of people using these drugs in the wrong way?
Well, there are many extreme cases, but I will see, for example, kids coming in here and saying, I had all A's last year, but I'm worried about my SATs. Can't you please tell me that I have a diagnosis of ADD so I can get a prescription for Adderall and take the SATs? And I will say no. And they'll say, why not? And then they'll say, but I want extended time, because that's another reason that you'd be able to get or that's another purpose for the diagnosis.
What's wrong with that? Why shouldn't someone, just like they'll have a Red Bull, just like they'll have a cup of coffee, why can't they take an Adderall and do better?
Well, because there are always side effects. When you work non-stop without rest, which is what these drugs can allow you to do, it's not good for your brainwave patterns. Every brain has to rest. Every body has to rest. You will be overexhausted. You will be incapable of functioning at some point, and the drug that's designed to help you focus eventually will make you incapable of focusing if you abuse it.
Is the effect different on somebody who actually is diagnosed with ADHD than on somebody who doesn't have ADHD?
The effect on kids who are diagnosed with this is actually they very much calm down. Perhaps they're hyperactive and they're running all over the place, they're highly distractible, they can't focus. Now we realize it's not just calming and focusing for those with ADD, but for those who don't have ADD, it certainly creates focus. It doesn't have as a helpful effect as it does for those who are diagnosed with ADD. It has more of the negative effects, I would say.
Can these drugs actually cause long-term damage?
Many kids tell me they end up in rehab and they're finding other people who are using and abusing stimulants, and that's how they began their whole process. That's one issue. The other issue is what it does to them long-term physically and medically. And so if your body doesn't have a chance to rest and you're constantly at peak performance, you know it's going to happen to the body sooner or later. It's going to break down. These drugs affect and are known to have side effects for heart irregularities for those who are sensitive to it. Some kids don't know if they have any kind of cardiac condition at all. They're taking these drugs without even a prescription. They're given to them by another kid.
There's been a real increase recently in people who have been getting these drugs from their friends or from drug dealers. And a lot of people think, you know what, this isn't coke, this isn't pot, I'm just gonna take it, I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna get it from a friend, it's no big deal. Are there any ramifications aside from the health ramifications?
Well, my concern for these kids is they don't realize this is a class 2 drug that's controlled. And that by simply giving another kid a pill that they have as prescribed, they will then be eligible for a felony charge. Felony charge. So these are very serious consequences for the use of these drugs.
So giving your friend an Adderall could be considered a felony? It
can be considered a felony. One could be arrested for that. This is a shock to kids. But kids have been let go from schools as a result of this when it comes to the school's attention. Why? The school doesn't want to be involved in this if they can avoid it. So in college, these kids don't realize, and we know it's rampant throughout private schools, in high school, and certainly in college, these kids are taking these drugs from one another. They're having parties. They come in here and they tell me they're snorting these drugs for fun.
So this really isn't a safe replacement for more dangerous drugs. This is a dangerous drug.
It can certainly be a dangerous drug itself, and it certainly is regulated by the government.
What have been the most extreme cases that you've seen of young people becoming addicted to drugs like Adderall and Ritalin?
I think some of the extreme cases involve kids who start in college and then go on to their work and professional life, continuing to abuse the drugs, and then wrecking their careers. And that's extremely tragic to me.
Dr. Parker, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Parker definitely reframed the way I've been looking at these drugs for many years, and I want to hear what you think. What have your experiences been? What have your friends' experiences been? Wire us at Waywire and comment below and let us know what you think.